It was late, and the desert air hung heavy with the scent of dust and sage. New Mexico State Patrol Officer Gabriel Valdez guided his cruiser along a quiet stretch of highway, the rhythmic hum of the tires the only sound. Then his headlights caught something unusual on the roadside, a dark, sprawling shape. He eased his car to a stop, squinting through the driver's window. For a moment, he considered ignoring it, just driving on. Out here, strange shapes could be anything. A collapsed fence post, a stray sheet of tin roofing, the carcass of a deer. But instinct gnawed at him. He'd seen too many things lately to take this lightly. With a tired exhale, Valdez reached for the radio and informed dispatch of his location. Then, opening the door, he stepped into the stillness. His boots crunched softly in the dry earth as he crossed the brush. Even before he reached it, he knew. The shape on the ground wasn't debris. It was a cow, lifeless, its body lying at an odd angle. The details hit him one by one. The diamond-shaped patterns cut into the hide. The patches of skin that had been stripped away with surgical precision. The missing eyes, tongue, and nose. There was no blood, not even a drop, and no torn flesh from predators. Valdez's experience told him more. He hadn't opened the carcass, but he was certain the reproductive organs would be gone, along with other key internal parts. Always the same organs. Always taken cleanly. He scanned the ground. No tracks. No signs of a struggle. The earth around the cow was undisturbed, as if it had been placed there. Then came the low growl of an engine. Valdez turned his head toward the highway. A large, camouflaged military truck rolled into view. As it approached his cruiser, it slowed. The men inside stared at him as they passed, their expressions unreadable. Then the truck accelerated, kicking up a cloud of dust. Standing in the fading haze, Valdez felt a mix of emotions. Confusion. A prickling fear. But above all, anger. Anger toward whoever was responsible for the growing trail of dead cattle, and toward the shadow of deception he sensed looming over the mesa. It felt, to him, like a message, stay away. Dulce wasn't always here. It came into being in the late 19th century, when U.S. authorities ordered the guerrilla Apache to settle in a single location. They chose the valley beneath Archuleta Mesa, and the guerrilla Apache Reservation was established. For decades, life in this isolated corner of New Mexico was quiet, if rugged. People knew their neighbors, and the mesa was simply part of the backdrop, a looming, silent guardian. But locals also shared older stories. Accounts of strange lights gliding across the night sky, rumors of tall, hairy creatures moving through the scrub, tales of things that didn't fit into the usual rhythm of ranching and small-town life. Then, in the late 1970s, something changed. Reports began trickling in from ranchers. Cattle found dead under strange circumstances. At first, the police thought it might be coyotes or mountain lions. But then Officer Valdez was sent to investigate and found that these weren't predator kills. The scenes were eerily consistent. Only one animal from a herd would be targeted. Organs removed, but no flesh eaten. No footprints, no vehicle tracks. And perhaps most unsettling of all, even scavengers avoided the carcasses. Coyotes, vultures, they wouldn't go near them, sometimes for weeks. In some cases, bones inside the animals were shattered in ways suggesting a fall from a great height. Valdez began quietly noting the pattern, but he didn't push any single theory. He was there to record the facts, and the facts didn't make sense. In the summer of 1986, the mystery took a human turn. Local resident Jerry Julian walked into the police department with a story that froze the officers in place. She claimed someone had tried to abduct her from her bed the night before. She and her husband had driven out to the slopes of Archuleta Mesa to look at the stars. The evening was still, the sky clear. Then Jerry noticed one star that seemed to move. Slowly, impossibly, it drifted across the darkness, and then began to descend. It landed not far from them. The glow faded, revealing a metallic craft. A ramp extended, and two small figures stepped out. Panic surged. Jerry's husband shoved her into their truck, fumbling with the ignition. The engine coughed, refused to start. The figures moved closer, their short frames moving with eerie slowness, arms out as if reaching. Only when they were within meters did the truck roar to life. The couple sped away into the night, not looking back. They didn't report it right away. But in the early hours, Jerry awoke to a strange pulling at her blankets. At the foot of her bed stood the same two figures. She tried to scream, but only a rasp came out, just enough to wake her husband. The figures vanished instantly. When questioned by federal agents, Jerry insisted these beings were known among the native community. She even described a concealed opening high up on the mesa, an entrance, she said, that led deep inside. At the same time Jerry's story emerged, another thread began weaving into the Dulce legend. Paul Benowitz, a businessman from Albuquerque, started sending detailed reports to Kirtland Air Force Base. He claimed he had not only seen strange lights, but had intercepted unusual energy signals and radio transmissions, all originating, he said, from beneath Archuleta Mesa. Benowitz was persistent. He flew over the mountains in his private plane, photographing anything that looked out of place. He drew maps marking supposed vents and access tunnels. He interviewed ranchers who'd lost cattle and locals who claimed abduction. But as his reports became more elaborate, his credibility waned. He spoke of multiple alien species, of underground vats filled with human organs. The military grew wary, then dismissive. In 1988, Benowitz suffered a severe mental breakdown. His family committed him to a psychiatric facility, and his reports faded from official concern. But his early descriptions would echo through the Dulce story for years to come. In the mid-1990s, a new voice entered the conversation, Thomas Costello, a man who claimed to be a former Air Force technician. Costello's story was even more astonishing. According to him, the Dulce installation wasn't purely alien. It was a U.S. government base where humans and extraterrestrials worked side by side on genetic experiments. He said he'd been transferred there in the early 1970s from Nellis Air Force Base, and that his duties included maintaining surveillance systems and documenting lab experiments. He described alien hybrids floating in tanks and claimed Dulce was part of a network of underground facilities linked by high-speed trains. Costello even offered photographs, though skeptics would later call them fakes. Before reporters could fully investigate, he vanished from the public eye. Later, Avery Tafoya, a former reservation police detective, claimed he'd seen a federal report on Jerry Julian's case. It contained detailed diagrams of an underground complex right where Julian had described the hidden entrance. The blueprints showed 7 levels, housing units, storage bays, laboratories, and an underground rail system matching Costello's story. Tafoya tried repeatedly to reach the site, but weather stopped him every time. Using thermal imaging, he documented strange vents and recorded the sounds of machinery deep beneath the mesa. Officially, the U.S. military denies Dulce Base exists. Investigators say Costello's records can't be found. His photos are fabricated. Intelligence operatives have even admitted to feeding Paul Benowitz false information, allegedly to steer him away from sensitive but unrelated military facilities. Some, like Gabriel Valdez, never believed the alien angle. Before his death in 2011, Valdez told his son he thought the mutilations were the work of humans, specifically, part of a covert program to monitor radiation from past nuclear tests. Still, Dulce remains suspended between the plausible and the unbelievable. Could there be underground military facilities hidden from public view? Yes, but vats of human body parts? Interspecies research programs? That's harder to accept. Unless, of course, you believe the testimony of one man. A man who claimed to have worked at Dulce. A man who said he survived a deadly firefight between humans and aliens during the base's construction. His name was Phil Schneider, and his story will take us even deeper beneath the mesa.